Turn here. So we're making our way down Pennsylvania Avenue, closely monitoring what's going on in the sky, hoping it's not going to rain. But it looks ominous. The forecast wasn't saying anything terrible about rain, but we will have to see because I've already felt a few drops. This is the entrance to the Trump Hotel, the famous Trump Hotel in Washington. This is the main entrance to the hotel. Well, it's what would have been the main entrance to the hotel if they'd put the entrance here. But they actually don't let anybody go in the building through that entrance. So it's just the Trump sign and a bunch of barricades. And I guess one of the restaurants has seating out here. It's a pretty cool building though. And they did a really spectacular job of renovating the interior. It's a statue of Ben Franklin. It's the only statue I know of Ben Franklin in Washington. It's a little weird because he was a pretty outsized influence on the history of the country to only have that one little statue there in front of the Trump Hotel. And this is the, I guess it's the beginning of the, well, I guess this is the Clinton Federal Building. Kind of back in there is the, actually I'll go back through there, the Ronald Reagan Building complex. It's pretty enormous. So there's the Trump Hotel again. It's a pretty massive building. It doesn't have a lot of practical other uses. But they repurposed it into a hotel. It used to be the old post office, and then it was vacant for a while. So we're walking through this colonnade here at the Ronald Reagan Building, or the Ronald Reagan Complex, which is the largest building complex in all of Washington. We think there's probably some kind of bunker or something underneath this building because it took them forever to do the renovations to build it. And then we will cut up sort of through the colonnade here. It's actually I guess it's closed now. normally there's actually a metro station down here. Let's see, out basically right into the middle of this major set of buildings. So you can come out of the metro station, and then right there is like the entrance to some of the buildings. All the metro stations right now, I believe, are, I don't know what metro situation is right now. Those gates are closed, but I can hear a train squeaking down there. So not really sure what the story is. So we're now in the heart of the Ronald Reagan building complex, on our way to visit some ducks and or protests. And there's this giant courtyard thing in the middle. The bunch of sculptures, things of that sort. This again is a massive building complex. Bunch of office spaces. It's like a whole convention center as part of this. And it integrates some fairly new faux historical buildings with some actual historical buildings. There's the Woodrow Wilson Center. I don't know what that is. And the old post offices. I guess back when the post office was headquartered in this area. But anymore it's not really. So it just kind of goes on and on. Luckily it's on our way to cut through it. It's a little bit of a different experience compared to some of the things we've been looking at over and over the last several days. It's a very dead courtyard, although I have encountered homeless people asking for money on this corridor. Yeah, so it's one of the main entrances to the Reagan building and trade center here. I don't know what that is. So we have a children's play area out here. So we're on our way to visit some ducks. We hope. If it doesn't rain first. The sky's a little bit ominous, but we'll have to see. A lot of news today in Atlanta. That shooting there. Interesting to watching that play out. The police have now walked out on their jobs, at least a lot of them. Police blotter in Atlanta was very quiet today. That's I don't know, police cars. Police SUVs. I think that's like a car showroom or something. Should we go left or right? Going this way. Since we're close and already running a little bit late, getting started. I was going to take everybody up to see Freedom Plaza and the Willard Hotel and some of those kinds of buildings, but we can catch that maybe on the way back through downtown. I'm looking up at those clouds, very ominous looking. So the weather did not show a high probability of rain, but we will have to see. Maybe the clouds are just metaphoric for the state of the country right now. Feels like we have. I thought we had kind of gone insane a few years ago. Feels like we were kind of going more insane now. I don't know what this little thing is. Let's see, we got a few seconds here. Some kind of underground hive thing. I don't know what the heck that is. There's some signs there, I guess, telling us what it is, but I'm too lazy to read right now. Because I don't know, see some ducks. If we'd find some ducks. If I can make it across the street here. I didn't. Oh, my light. I don't know what these people are doing up here on the front of the African American History Museum. There's some kind of gathering to see what that's all about. Streets around, I mean, I haven't been up in the protest area today, but the streets around DC seem about as normal as they've been in a while. It's just kind of gotten progressively more normal over the last number of days. So I'm not sure what this gathering is all about. They had cameras set up. I was wondering if this was Black Lives Matter related or something, because this is the African American History Museum in DC. He's dressed in black. Not sure why. And of course, the Washington Monument behind, as we inch our way closer to potentially seeing some ducks. Far southeast corner of the White House grounds, right here. Looks like they may have moved some of the fencing back. So maybe we can see if we can move a little bit that way. Get a little closer to the White House on the backside here, if the light will allow us. Ice cream truck here. Hey Patrick, yeah, we're on our way to the ducks. We're slowly weaving our way through downtown, getting to some of the ducks, hoping it doesn't rain on us. Oh, it's looking a little ominous. First day that I've been out here that this back side of the White House is more open like this. This is more down how it normally is. They had big fencing on the back side here for the better part of the last several weeks. But I think things have calmed down to an extent where they have removed some of that tall black fencing. So I can actually traverse the back part of the ellipse here, south of the White House. This will be closer than we have gotten in a while to the White House. It's on the back side. So, just touched on some of the news from today in Atlanta and elsewhere. Sounds like they also graffitied the mayor's house in Seattle. She was upset about that. It hits home a little bit more when it's your house, not just other people's businesses. But that's what being an elected official representing the public is theoretically supposed to be about. So this is the ellipse on the back side of the White House. And a squirrel. Squirrels in DC are nuts. We have black squirrels and gray squirrels and brown squirrels, all kinds of squirrels. Very diverse squirrels. So we're traversing the ellipse on the way to see some ducks. Not a lot of protest activity in Washington today, that I have seen at least. If anybody knows of anything, let me know. We're about 30 seconds away from hitting the back side of the White House. I realize my time estimates are usually way off. I feel like I'm about as good as projecting time to the next destination as the train trackers are at projecting when the next train is going to arrive at the metro station. They always say it's going to be 3 minutes, and it's like 10 minutes. But luckily, I haven't taken a train in months. I've been in a car in months. COVID, like, shut down society, and I don't really have to go anywhere. Hey, Nikki Warren. I don't think we've seen Nikki before. Did you try feeding peas to the ducks? We haven't tried peas yet. I do have peas. Where am I? I'm on the ellipse. This is, in fact, right ahead of me is the National Christmas Tree. The official U.S. Christmas tree. The Washington Monument is right there. Give peas a chance. It's a good one. Very funny. It's very hot out. It was very temperate for a few days in DC. I think it's getting hotter again. There's the Christmas tree. And then right through this opening, we will see the White House. So, it's the back fountain on the back side of the White House. And then there's the White House itself. It's the first time in weeks that we've been able to get this close. So, hey Colin. Colin, we're looking into the back windows of the White House. So, those back windows there on the upper floor are part of the residential suite for the president. Probably this time of day. Trump is still down on the West Wing, which is over kind of through those trees. A lot of people think the Oval Office is like right in the back of the oval part of the White House. It's not. It's actually part of the West Wing, which is over here through those trees. Also through those trees is the presidential basketball court that Obama had built. And kind of on the other side of that fountain there is the presidential running track that Bill Clinton had built. Because when Bill Clinton took office in 1993, he was sort of notoriously overweight and took up running and actually had a track built there on the backside of the White House. Then George W. Bush used, and then we used to bike with Lance Armstrong back there. It's also where the helicopters land, kind of back in that field. Looks like they're loading up some SUVs. I don't know what's going on back there right now. This is kind of the back fence area. And then looking back this way, straight ahead, you get the Jefferson Memorial under construction there through the trees, and then the Washington Monument popping up. So that's kind of what we get of the White House. pretty thick vegetation guarding the back lawn. I guess the south lawn of the White House. South lawn is where they do a lot of the ceremonies. So this is the national Christmas tree they do. No, but if I would definitely take tourists around. I think there's some websites where you can do that just as a regular person. But I'd happily start a tour company or something. Take people around. Okay, Nikki grew up in Rockville, spent most of the weekends in DC. Where are you now, Nikki? So yesterday we explored. Yesterday was raining in DC, so we tried to do duck action. And we did for a while, but it was raining pretty hard, so we ended up exploring some of the Capitol Hill area. Yeah, checking out the Capitol building, Supreme Court, Library of Congress, the Grant Memorial, Taft Memorial, the Hayes Summer House, some of that kind of stuff. Union Station. Okay, Nikki's in St. Louis now. St. Louis is kind of a fun city. St. Louis is a nice city because it developed as a city a long time ago. It was much, much bigger than it is now. Back, 60 years ago. St. Louis still kind of feels like a very big city in a lot of ways, but there's like nobody there. There's no traffic. They got good museums, things like that. Okay. Daffta Duck says, as a fellow duck, don't hunt my family. Duckworth, Duckwives matter. We're all 68 DAFTA handles taken. Is that why you had to be 69? Respect the ducks. Okay, guys, we're on the way to see ducks. We have 5 minutes. St. Louis does have its good points. St. Louis has a lot of it's a very well organized city, like culturally, with the Arch. It's a pretty good museum there to like the America moving westward. That central corridor in St. Louis is nice. Got a really good zoo and gardens. City Garden's nice, and then kind of some of the nicest neighborhoods in the city sort of go in a line there, heading to the west, and then it eventually reaches St. Louis University. You can see the Budweiser factory, which I know Colin is enthusiastic about drinking some Budweiser. 69. Birth year, you dirty-minded person. So Colin should feel better because it sounds like DAFTA is probably older than Colin. Right across here. What are we feeding? These 5 minutes go like 5 minutes. Colin loves the ducks. Patrick loves the ducks. Wild Bill says, hey, Colin. Okay, Nikki says, I still miss DC. Yes, we have to make an appointment to go to the zoo now. I haven't tried going to the zoo since COVID. I don't want to give the animals COVID. The Bronx Zoo had some of the animals were getting COVID. Some of the tigers. Didn't sound good. You should bring a leash so you can walk a duck home. I think all I would need to do to walk a duck home is just keep dropping food behind myself, and it would probably follow me all the way. Colin says, hey, Wild Bill. Wild Bill says I sound like his tax guy. Like an accountant. Maybe I am your tax guy. It'd be weird. A difference back. DAFTA shares a birthday with the United States. DAFTA, where are you from now? Where do you live now? I think we got a lot of Europeans that always join this. I'm glad you have a CPA doing your taxes. It wouldn't make as much sense if you had somebody else. So we're crossing Constitution Avenue right now. More ice cream trucks. It's not their typical music. Is it peaceful there or still protests? Right now it's pretty peaceful. It has really calmed down a lot. In fact, the only reason I was walking back there by the White House is that today's been the first day I've been able to walk that close to the backside of the White House in several weeks. It's gotten progressively less intense each day for the last couple weeks. I guess it's pushing 3 weeks now. But the Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 2.5 weeks ago were really, really, really intense. And then that next week was quite intense. Well, it was very intense, actually, as the military was occupying downtown. And then it's gotten less intense since then. The sky is pretty dark back there. As of last weekend, there were some people out, mostly just sort of doing sort of traditional protest stuff in front of the White House. Not many now. You sound like Adam, who married Mary Ingalls after she went blind on Little House on the Prairie. That is an exceptionally specific reference, Matt, and I have no idea what you're talking about. I know what Little House on the Prairie is. I've just never. I don't know. Is that a book or a TV show? I don't know. I've never read it. I've seen it. DAFTA's from York in the UK. Okay, we got a lot of UK people. We got UK. I think we got Scotland. Was the actual military the National Guard? It was both. They brought the entire DC National Guard force out on the streets, and then they had soldiers from Fort Bragg in North Carolina patrolling the streets. They had basically military machinery in every corner. But it was a good thing they did, because that the Sunday before they did, the city pretty much got torn apart. It was really, really, really ugly. There were just fires everywhere. There was looting everywhere. It was really, really bad. And without the military, they were going to lose the White House. Like, it was getting really bad. It was very scary to still be in Washington. In fact, if they hadn't called out the military that Monday, I was going to get out of the city if I could, just rent a car and drive, because I was worried about my building. Every storefront was getting destroyed. Just random fires everywhere. Just firefights in the streets. It was a war zone. It was really bad. I cannot overstate how bad it was. It was among the worst things I've ever seen. I mean, it was the worst thing I've ever seen in person in my life. But like our duck streams in the UK, that's why you get a lot of us. Clearly, that would have been a smart move to leave. Well, so after Sunday night, I thought it was going to be like sort of a one-night thing that Saturday, and then Sunday ended up being worse. Excuse me. And then I was going to try to leave on Monday, but as it turned out, Monday's the day they called out the army, and things got substantially better when they did. We've got a few ducks here, not a ton actually. Where'd they all go? The Army saved the day. You know, I think the Army's gotten a lot of flack for being there, but they really did. You know, from the perspective of someone that was on the ground, like they really did help that situation out a lot. Yeah, we just nearly get wiped out by a bike. That was not ideal. We got some grass ducks over here.
5 weeks later.
Not sure why we have grass ducks. Hey, grass ducks. What's going on, grass ducks? You guys just eating grass? Not sure what the grass ducks are doing over here. A lot of good films. I'll try to get some grass ducks to come here. Yeah, New York didn't use the military, and I think they ended up getting hit pretty bad. Oh, we got a whole contingent of grass ducks, including our friend, the white duck, who was being very bossy on Sunday. Brilliant Forrest Gump scene filmed where I am now. Are you saying that I sound like Forrest Gump? I hope not. See, the white duck's being a jerk again. And somehow we already have a land crow. He's already stealing bread from the ducks. Yeah, I would have gotten wiped out. Yeah, we think this is definitely white privileged duck. Get out of here, crow. I don't know why they're all being grass ducks today. I don't know if the white duck is racist or not. He's just kind of a jerk to everybody. This crow is eyeing just everything. He's taking everybody's food. Proud boy duck. Ducks should eat too much bread, it blows them when wet. Yeah, I know. People start getting hungry, those ducks are in trouble, Matt says. Sadly, other than a couple ritzy blocks, they mostly destroyed the businesses that serve their community, and now they have major issues with groceries and prescriptions. Yeah, it's always, you know, burn down your own grocery store and then complaining on the grocery store. I mean, got a lot of crows on top of us today. Not ideal. I don't know if the park police would really appreciate people eating these ducks, though. These ducks belong to Abraham Lincoln. He's a white supremacist. He's kind of the only white duck, though. It's probably, if he's a white duck supremacist, he's going to be lonely. Well, if you stole the ducks, yeah, I think you would definitely be in trouble. He wants to grow up to be a goose. Yeah, that duck's a little fed up with the crows. Yeah, you tell him. And this one's making a lot of noise over here. Come here, white duck. Not that a crow. Come here. Come here. But never tell these days with gender assignment. I don't know if these ducks have reached that point of the progressive trajectory of their society or not. I guess they're setting up autonomous zones in the ponds, so they seem to be fighting a lot with the crows, which I completely understand because the crows keep taking our food. These ducks are a little standoffish. Come here, ducks. Come here, ducks. The Budweiser headquarters, and I think you take the factory tours in St. Louis, which is where Nikki is from, where Nikki lives. Were those crows in the birds? Why are you guys being so standoffish? Colin's favorite beer is Budweiser. Fun fact, the duck is... Yeah, I've heard that. Internet god. But the female ducks have kind of an interesting... So, ducks procreate almost entirely through non-consensual relations, but the female ducks fight back because they have like their insides are kind of like a maze, and they can send if they don't want to copulate with the duck that's forcing himself inside her, then they can send him down like a different passageway that's a dead end. Yeah, you can take a tour of the Budweiser factory and drink Budweiser to your heart's content. This one's being kind of a jerk. You're actually scaring off the white duck. Yeah, these ducks are getting fed up for these little sparrows and crows. Come here, duck. Come here. I got my shoes taken care of. Yeah, a few days ago, one of these, somebody bombed my shoe. Internet God. Okay. Corona with Lyme. See, the problem with Corona, I heard there's a pretty nasty virus you can get from it. Went on a tour of the Bacardi rum factory. That'd probably be pretty cool. Hi, IB McFly. We had a bunch of grass ducks today. I don't know why they're being grass ducks. Fake ducks. Why do you think they're fake? Does Scotch have any relationship to Scotland, or is that just... Why is it called Scotch? CGI ducks. It's gonna be a lot easier to CGI these ducks. Tell me the story, IB. What is everybody's favorite hard alcohol? Assuming people are of age. Nikki says it's peaceful. Yeah, that's kind of the intent. Normally when they're water ducks, they're very peaceful. That sparrow's making a lot of noise. Gray goose. Nikki, geese are our enemy. Okay, IB says Scotch or whiskey. That's good. Any particular kind of whiskey? Okay, Wild Bill says vodka. Vodka's only good if you do something with it. Straight vodka is not very good. Vodka and rum, says Patrick. Yeah, I'm not crazy about rum. Grey Goose. Okay, Nikki is... Vodka and tequila. Those are like the two worst. You from Scotland would know the answer to that question. I can't drink vodka because I'm not a big enough alcoholic yet. What would it take to make you more of an alcoholic, Matt? And how can we help? Different says smokes. Okay, well, different is different. Girl Scout cookies are yummy. Okay. I only drink rum when I'm on a cruise having umbrella drinks. There's a gigantic crow back there. But I'm more the smoker guy. Oh, Patrick, like cigarettes or something else? What about cigars? Those two ducks are in a bit of a tiff together. Internet God is also a weed man. Vodka, tonic, lime wedge. Yeah, Wild Bill, I'm not crazy about that. Patrick is very into 420. Okay. Patrick, do you like Is that why you enjoy the ducks so much? Is that like good like weed fodder? Come here. Come here. Some very active ducks today. I feel like when you're water ducks, you have less competition. Yeah, Long Island ICs can be good. Matt has been smoking weed since 1982. This new stuff, last 10 years, is really good. Any ducklings? Yeah, we'll find some ducklings as soon as we get to the water. They don't usually come out of the water for very long. We're getting a lot of land birds. Hey there. This duck is very perplexed by all these crows, or whatever they are. Bold bird wins the bread, a lot like human life, yeah. Some of our ducks are maybe slowly working their way back toward the water. You're just making noise over here. IB's in the Upper Peninsula. Okay, I haven't spent a lot of time in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, but I have been to Mackinac and Traverse City. I don't remember a ton of geese there, but I don't know, geese are kind of jerks, aren't they? They're like, the geese here are not, the reason we're not at Constitution Gardens right now is because it's full of geese. I'm not a big fan of geese because they kind of take the food from the ducks and they chase us around and they're not afraid. A little scary. At least the crows, when you like tell them to scram, they kind of scram. Come here, duck. Come here, duck. Come here. How about you? Actually chasing each other around. Looks like we're losing some. Oh, some of our ducks are becoming water ducks again. Clover might be hard for them. Ever watched ducks on weed? I have not. University of Missouri, they have geese walking all over campus. They can be mean during mating season. I bet they're not afraid of people if they live on the university either. Jake says duck, duck, duck. Ivy McFly, my parents have a male and female duck come right in their backyard every night to feed them. It's probably sounds like some upper peninsula of Michigan kind of thing. Beautiful spots, mate. Yeah, Lincoln Memorial is right there. And the Washington Monument is right there. And a very loud duck is right there. I think it's being chased around by another duck in front of the Washington Monument. Nikki Warren says duck, 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 duck. IB says, yeah, they are snotty. This duck's a little standoffish. Our white duck over there is... Looks like we've lost all of our ducks to the water, so we're going to switch to the end. We're going to hang out with the water ducks now. Leave the white duck to stew on his white duck privilege. Internet God says Joe Rogan died. Oh no. You ever killed a duck? I don't believe I've ever killed a duck. I see a loon every once in a while. Okay. Loons, look at loons as the zebras of birds. Ducks chasing each other looks so funny. Yeah, they kind of just run strangely. Yeah, I bet geese do attack people a lot. I'm sure the internet is full of videos of that. And just like that, we got a bunch of water ducks. Is it true they're removing the statue of Lincoln, replacing it with George Floyd? Asks Internet God. Oh, we got a land duck. There has been some talk about, there's obviously been a lot of talk about Confederate statues. A lot of them are getting torn down. That duck chased her friend back into the water. Got some ducks up here. There has been some talk about Jefferson and Washington, as both were slave owners, but no talk about Abraham Lincoln being removed. Thought maybe they could put up a giant statue of a duck in place of the statue of, or the George Washington, or the Washington Monument. Oh, we got some baby ducks here. Some little ducks on land. We got some land baby ducks. Oh. Baby ducks, baby ducks, baby ducks. Stay here, stay here, stay here, baby ducks. Baby ducks. Baby ducks. Baby ducks. It's like a duck mutiny here. Yeah, I saw they were talking about removing a statue of Winston Churchill. That seems crazy. Why is Winston Churchill bad? Like, he's not related to any of this stuff. Yeah, there's a lot of duck child abuse. It does feel a little bit Orwellian. I mean, I get that there are a lot of sensitivities around the Confederate statues, but a lot of the other ones does feel very Orwellian. You guys are splashing me. Little duck. Little duck. Babies are a little frenetic. We feed them a mix of things. There's bread, there's a little bit of popcorn. I didn't see that they tore down a Jefferson statue. I could believe it, though. I just didn't see it. They don't seem to have a whole bunch of preference, Patrick. They seem to be pretty content with whatever you give them. I do think they might prefer wheat to white. I'm surprised Berkeley still had buildings named after American historical figures. It's a little crazy just how literal some of the language from 1984 is becoming. It does feel like the world has gone a little bit closer to the idiocracy in the last few weeks in a lot of different dimensions. Oh, why was there a statue of Jefferson in Portland? And why had that been torn down sooner? To replace it with this, who are they going to replace these statues with statues of? Obama. But Obama spent the first few years of his term where he didn't even support gay marriage. I sometimes think about it from the perspective of the artist who built the statue. It seems pretty callous to do that to someone's work. It's making a lot of noise. Yours are being pretty vocal. You sound rusty. Dog food is gluten-free. I'm glad your kids are liking it. What are your kids' names? We got some more baby ducks over here. Ashton and Dexter. He's doing 2C slide. I think they feel like they're still on the first wave of coronavirus, right? Where do you get your kids? You're kind of just neglecting your kids there, Duck. What are you squawking at? Where did your kids go? Oh, they're over here. You definitely do down at the Capitol Reflecting Pool, Colin. In fact, there's some lady saying she actually had duck food. Part of the reason is also that there are no real tourists in Washington right now. It's all locals that are down here. During tourist season, there's a lot, and part of the reason I started coming down in the first place was that I was sort of worried about them. Without any tourists, I think a lot of their ecosystem is actually kind of built on food from tourists. When there are no tourists, they really struggle. But with coronavirus, DC's down the mall here is very quiet, so people aren't throwing them little, halves of sandwiches and stuff. China's having a resurgence in Beijing. Patrick, what would you name the ducks? I think somebody decided there was a Marcus Lincoln was one of the ducks. Yeah, DC feels very, very different here with the coronavirus. There are no tourists. Internet God, I'm not a pervert. When I was in DC last, vendors sold these huge egg rolls. They were so good. I don't know. I don't usually buy from the street vendors down here. I mean, I only live a few blocks away from the mall, so it's not really necessary for me to buying a lot of food from the street vendors down here. Name the ducks after the toppled statues. I thought most of the ducks had some relation to Abraham Lincoln. I think we decided that these ducks were actually descendants of Abraham Lincoln, most of them at least. And I don't know how Lincoln would feel about having a bunch of Confederate ducks. Do you remember where you got that, IB? Like which, near what monument? I know the food trucks move around here, and they're pretty expensive. Like Laura. What is Ute? Kim, Ursula, and stuff? Are those usual names? Oh, hey. How are you doing? The Natural History Museum. Yeah. So Abraham Lincoln was actually part duck himself, or at least he had duck DNA, and actually birthed most of the ancestors of these ducks. And in Lincoln's second term, as a tribute to his duck family, he was going to pass a bill mandating free food for all ducks in perpetuity, but John Wilkes Booth, who was very pro-geese and anti-duck, shot him to prevent that bill from ever being passed. So Lincoln never actually got to pass that piece of legislation. And the result was that there have been ducks protesting here in the Lincoln Reflecting Pool on behalf of free bread ever since. There for females. Patrick, I feel like they need more American names, though. I don't think you see a lot of Americans named Ursula. He wouldn't have been assassinated if he ducked. It's a good point, Jake. Baby duck. Hey, duckling. Come on. This mom keeps stealing the food from her duckling. Hey, duckling. Not. I'm trying to get it to your baby. Hey, baby duck. Baby duck. Baby duck. Baby duck. There you go. Baby duck. Come here, baby duck. Josh, George, Michael, John. Yeah, those are kind of more or less typical American names. The white duck is crossing the road here.
Because I was coming in the line. She started hiding. Stay away from me! Stay back! Stay back! Stay back! I said, lady, if you that damn there. I said, you that there, no, you shouldn't even came to the store.
Hey, baby duck, baby duck, baby duck. I'm trying to get to this baby duck, but the mama duck won't let me hand feed her baby duck. What if I... Oh, baby duck, baby duck, baby duck, baby duck. Baby duck. Baby duck, baby duck. You're really not letting me get close to your babies. I don't think they have tongues, no, Patrick. Baby duck, baby duck. Where do you guys want to go? I can take you to the Lincoln Memorial. We can go to the Vietnam Memorial, the Korean War Memorial, the Einstein statue. If you guys want to go somewhere. Also happy to just hang out with the ducks. But we can go look at some more. We can take a look across the river at Arlington National Cemetery. Everywhere but not to the geese. Yeah, we gotta see where the geese are. But now we can make it a vote where you guys want to go. We're kind of in the vicinity of the Lincoln Memorial, so we can actually go see the Lincoln statue, see if they've torn that down and replaced it with a statue of George Floyd. The Vietnam Memorial is pretty iconic. We can go see that. We can see the Korean War Memorial. So yeah, we can do another little tour of memorials in a little bit here. Maybe about 10 minutes or so, maybe we can kind of go do some of that. Or whenever the ducks feel like they're getting tired of me. Lincoln, okay. We can go see the Lincoln, Bill. Bill, haven't you been to Washington, though? Get out of here, crow. Depends how far we want to go. We could also go see the FDR Memorial and the Martin Luther King Memorial. Those aren't far from here. Hey, little baby ducks. Yeah, Patrick, the Lincoln Memorial's right there. It's not far at all. I know Patrick just likes the ducks. Yeah, we'll definitely do. We're not going very far like yesterday, so if we do memorials, it'll just be probably 10 minutes or so of that. Hey, little babies. Baby ducks. Baby ducks. Baby ducks, come here. Yeah, we like the little sparrows, but not the oh, baby ducks. Out of here, out of here. Crow, out of here. Yeah, but ducks are pretty versatile. They're like built for this. Get out of here. Out of here. These baby ducks are thinking about it. Who was that? Baby ducks. I hope one day science make me able to carry a duck like a Pokemon. Okay. He'd probably make a duck Pokemon character. Oh, the baby ducks took that big piece of bread. They weren't supposed to get away with that. Uh-oh, these bikers are going to run over some ducks. These ducks are a lot more used to you now. Yeah, they're getting there. Trying to get to the point where the babies will feel comfortable eating by hand. A lot of obnoxious bikers. They ran off with a pretty big piece of bread a few minutes ago. I don't think they remember me now. Sorry, babies.
And it's like too well done.
There's so many damn bikers. I don't think they remember me. I think their memory is actually very short. I think the second I stop having things for them, they will forget about me. The babies do not like the crows. What about your relationship with your ex, Beefy? Beefy was dating a duck, maybe? Oh, this guy's still over here waiting for me. I got things for you. Don't get back in the water. Oh well. soon as you stop giving stuff to them, they forget about you. Okay. Oh. They're very standoffish, though. They've gotten more comfortable with me, but they're still very standoffish. Their mom will eat out of my hand, but the babies won't. The second I drop it, though, they'll go for it. Apparently they'll eat off of my leg, or they'll just bite my leg whether there's food there or not. Uh-oh.
That's so beautiful, man. That's a great day right there.
Colin, we've been doing these for about 3 weeks now. Started out with the protests. I mean, I've had the YouTube channel for 14 years, but we just started doing the ducks a few weeks ago. Oh, the baby ducks are getting back in the water. Wild Bill, that's inappropriate. So we lost all our land ducks. Still got some baby ducks in front of us here. What do you guys think about taking a little interlude here to go visit the Lincoln Memorial and the Vietnam Memorial, since they're right next to us? You guys want to do that, or you want to stay here and stay with the ducks? Colin says game with doing a little trip to the Lincoln. Anybody have objections? I know Patrick probably would prefer ducks. Patrick wants ducks. Okay, we need somebody to be a tiebreaker here. We'll be back to the ducks either way. Okay, Jake says Abe. Okay, Wild Bill says Abe. So we're gonna go see Abe for just a few minutes, but we will be back to the ducks here in a few minutes because Abe is just right down the walk a little bit here. Maybe even lead the ducks with us on the way. Okay, Jalen says ducks. Baby ducks are really fast. We got a whole parade of ducks coming our way. Mr. Smith goes to Washington, yeah. We'll see how far they follow me. They don't usually like this, they usually like this, the mucky end of the pond there by the World War II Memorial. They don't usually come all this way. But they're following me so far. Got a whole parade coming this direction. Yeah, as long as I have food for him, I'm the duck king. Oh, we got some. These guys thought it'd be faster to do it on land. Yeah, there are a couple land ducks following me. I think they got out. I think they thought that would be faster for them. I don't know if they swim faster or run faster. Yeah, we got a duck army following us here. Duck exercise, yeah. That green duck that was coming with the white duck is falling behind. Land ducks. If this happens all the time, we should visit Abe more often. This is yeah, we got several duck families coming with us. A white duck got back in the water. It's Lincoln Memorial, so we got a ways to go in the pool. See how far we can take them. The duck regatta. Yeah, I do have a duck army. I guess I could storm. If I took him back the other direction, I could storm the White House. It's not a big army, though. Every once in a while, somebody trails off. Kind of unclear. Oh, some infighting in the duck army. Why would the ducks storm the White House? You know, make a statement. Oh, the white duck was thinking about becoming a land duck again. That's where they store all the bread in the White House? Maybe. White House could probably do more for them than Lincoln Memorial can. It's really a race for number one here between the greenhead and the white duck. Lots of bread at Fort Knox. Is that true? The Fort Knox is where they kept like all the gold. You can see the Capitol Dome there off on the horizon by the Washington Monument. It's a cloudy day, otherwise it would be a beautiful sunset about this time of night. Like we might be losing some ducks back there, giving up on their march to the Lincoln Memorial. We've got a one land duck coming our way. Wonder if how many, if any, will make it all the way down to the end of the reflecting pool with us. This green guy knows what's going on. We got a couple of land ducks following us. We got a couple of land ducks here that are just chilling out. Or if they will join the race. Yeah, I think the ones who fall all the way, I agree with you, Patrick. They'll get some extra treats, although it seems like there's a bit of a holdup here. You got to keep them moving. We got some babies that are following us. Yeah, I don't like the bikes either, Colin. They do seem to scare the ducks. A lot of times they don't seem particularly considerate of the ducks. Oh, we got babies in front now. Our army's definitely gotten smaller, though. This pond just feels endless when you're walking it backwards. We still got a ways to go. Or if anybody's going to make it all the way with us. I don't think a lot of them come down this far very often. White duck seems kind of ambivalent. He's swimming this way, but he's kind of not paying attention to the bread. Yeah, it's very simple and elegant. We gotta reload. Hope our friends don't give up on us here. I hope so, Colin. It can't be that hard. It's a straight pool. Yeah, I know I got the ones with the endurance. This is like workouts in the start of the football season. It's how you know you got the best athletes, most committed. We only want soldiers who are fully committed to the mission. I don't know what the mission is. Yeah, probably. Some people are starting to lose steam here. Like we gotta tempt them with some more enticing options.
Me gusta hacer sesiones de coaching en mi familia. Eso me encanta. Descubro algo nuevo sobre emociones, sobre...
Yeah, people might be scaring them off. There's a lot of people coming this way. I don't know why. Including people dressed in suits for some reason. I can imagine what they're doing here, just like that.
What are you talking about? Like, he hasn't said it.
3 Secret Service guys, yeah. Oh, somebody decided to get back on the land. We're almost there, guys. It's a little bit further. Yeah, I don't want them to get too out of hand. They let them have their autonomous zone, but the second they start doing things that are suspicious, government gets a little worried. All right, we're almost there. This pond is endless. Walking backwards. Let's see who is gonna stick with us to the end here. Secret Service. I think the geese might be government agents just to keep an eye on the ducks. Split them up when they get too powerful. Shirtless guy scaring the ducks, yeah. Still going. Still going. And look at that, guys. We made it to the end. We made it to the end of the pool. And we still got ducks with us. They don't usually hang out at this end. I was watching, Colin. What is that yuck in the water? Yeah, we're gonna load them up here. Oh, we got a dog complicating things. They're celebrating, as you can hear them.
We gotta ride some more.
They came all this way, and now if we can get this guy sitting in the muck, I think he's our winner. If he can, he just needs to tap the end, and then he's good. I'm giving them their reward. Oh. This guy officially is the winner. You're officially the winner. You are officially the winner. Congratulations. You're getting your reward. He made it. One of these babies came all the way with us. This baby duck came all the way. A lot of these baby ducks came all the way with us. And this guy, totally the winner. You came all the way in a big way. Champions. And you're still here. I think he's headed home. I think he'll follow us to the Lincoln Memorial itself. Oh, he got a friend. So we got some new pets here. See if they will. Oh, no, he gave up. He's given up. Even the ducks don't want to come up the Lincoln Memorial. Okay, well, we got them as far as the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. Or she. Well, this one's a he. This one's a he. These are all he's. Yeah, we might have a new pet. These are the champion ducks. Right through the splooge, yes. These are our champion ducks that made it all the way down the reflecting pool with us. And they now get their rewards. Their justly earned rewards. His good eyes. Any of the rest of you? You guys want? We've now got somebody else joining us from over there. Come on. Oh, we finally got a duck coming up the steps. We've got some. Not as much as we did. They're coming up the steps now. We got a ways to go. Lincoln Memorial has 88 steps. I don't know, Colin. Let's have to see how far they go. We got a pretty big plaza to get by here in a few minutes. I think if we can get them to this plaza, I'm going to let them go because I don't want them to go too far from their habitat. I think that would be... Yeah, I'm going to probably let them go here. But they've been very, very good ducks. I'm going to get them, make sure they can find their way back to the water. There they go. And all their friends were here to congratulate them on their trek to the Lincoln Memorial. Come on, guys. Come on, guys. Back to the water. Yeah, I'm sure they could get back. I want them to be healthy and happy. They like the water. That's their place. Some people taking graduation photos. This spot where we are right now, of course, is the famous site of the Nick Sandman incident with the Native American drummer. Became national news for weeks on end. Come on, ducks. Back of the water. Yeah, he sued. I don't think he's won any of his suits, but he sure did scare the hell out of the Washington Post. Yeah, that was kind of the best sign of just sort of how lazy a lot of the media has gotten these days. There's just not a lot of good reporting. Baby duck. Yeah, the MAGA hat kid. Oh, this dog's gonna scare them all back in the water. That's good. Here you go, ducks. Well, the dog sat down. Okay, the ducks all made it back into the water, happily. So let's go see Lincoln real quick here. You guys still want to? So they would have had a long climb. They made it up. They made it up that first set of steps, and I think they made it up the second set of steps. And this third set of steps. So now there's the Lincoln Memorial, up close and personal. Rollerblades, yeah.
The sun is setting behind the memorial. It still looks nice.
So we're now working our way up the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. Jake's never been to... Jake, where are you from? Experience the touristy things like this. See what it's like. So, when we get to these top of these steps, we'll turn around. It's a pretty good view. Yeah, like everybody on here seems like they're from the UK. There's a lot of people taking graduation photos. I guess all the schools finished the year at home. So everybody seems like they're coming down here to take graduation photos this year. So now we're walking up the actual marble steps of the Lincoln Memorial here. And we've reached the actual memorial. So looking back this direction is view back down the reflecting pool, which we pretty much walked the whole length of with the ducks. And the Washington Monument down there. And just behind it, you'll see when we move over a little bit, is the U.S. Capitol building. It's a whole other mile and a half further down. Yeah, but it's a pretty spectacular year to be graduating. This is a big colonnade in the Lincoln Memorial. And then here's the Lincoln. Should build a duck statue, yeah. There's Abraham Lincoln himself. Giant statue of him sitting. This is just a memorial, it's not his tomb. I think he's buried in Springfield, Illinois, which is where he's from. It's pretty unusual to see this few people here in the memorial. This is obviously the view on the back of the penny, the inscription. So on this side, inscription above him, in this temple, as in the hearts of the people for whom he saved the Union, the memory of Abraham Lincoln is enshrined forever. Of course, unless they tear him down. It's a pretty spectacular memorial. Over on this side, each side of the memorial has this sort of vestibule. And on this side, they have the Gettysburg Address, which is probably the most famous speech in American history. The whole address is inscribed here, and it's a really, really beautiful piece of writing that was barely noticed at the time, but which in hindsight is maybe the most spectacular speech in the history of the country. It's the one that begins 407 years ago. It was very short, yeah. But the premise of it was to make sure that the memory of those who died at Gettysburg in the Civil War would not have died in vain. It is for us, the living, rather to be devoted to the unfinished work for which they have fought hard, for which they have fought here, have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we should take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion, that we here highly resolve that these brave dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall not perish from the earth. It's a really spectacular speech. And then on the other side of the memorial is a longer address that he gave at his second inaugural, which is a longer and less eloquent speech. A lot of Lincoln historians actually think that his second inaugural as a sort of speech was a better speech than the Gettysburg Address. And in it, he basically, when he was inaugurated the second time, was in 1865, it was pretty apparent by then that the North was well on its way to winning the Civil War, finally, after 5 years. And his second inaugural address begins to lay out his vision for the country after the Civil War. So it doesn't have the great lines, but it's also a pretty spectacular speech. This is his one that begins, fellow countrymen, and then at the end it's, with malice toward none, with charity for all, with firmness in the right, as God gives us to see the right. Let us strive on to finish the work we are in, to bind up the nation's wounds, to care for him who shall have borne the battle, and for his widow and his orphan, to do all which may achieve and cherish a just and lasting peace amongst ourselves and with all nations. We don't talk like that anymore. But Lincoln was sure a hell of a speech writer and speech giver. So it's a really spectacular memorial. Probably the best of all memorials in Washington. Depends on preference. Lincoln, Washington, and Jefferson obviously get the largest and most spectacular ones. From this angle, you're starting to see a little bit of the U.S. Capitol building pop out from behind the Washington Monument. Again, it's another whole mile and a half further down the National Mall, even though it looks like it's right there. So it's quite the view. And then actually you can walk all the way around the Lincoln Memorial here on the outside of the colonnade. And looking back this direction, you can kind of put yourself in space and time. I guess, first of all, this is kind of looking north into downtown Washington. Up that direction is the U.S. State Department and George Washington University, which is another one of the big universities. Yesterday we went to the Georgetown Law School. It's a different university. State Department is that direction. And now we're starting, like on the backside of the Lincoln Memorial, we're starting to look across the Potomac River, which is a tidal river that kind of runs here on the backside of Washington. You can kind of walk right up to it. I don't know, Patrick. It might just be that we're more still now, away from the moving water. We're going to start experimenting. I got a tablet that I can, we'll probably have higher video quality in future days. So that's the Potomac River. The skyline across the river is a skyline of Roslyn, Virginia, which is kind of the banking and financial hub. It's sort of DC's equivalent to Canary Wharf in a lot of respects. But it's Arlington, Virginia's downtown, where they don't have a height limit like they do in the core of Washington. So a lot of the banking and sort of bigger business happens there. And right in front of it is actually a little island called Roosevelt Island that has a memorial to Teddy Roosevelt, who was president from 1901 to 1909. And that's a really cool space. It's really hard to get to. It takes a long time to walk there. There's no real easy way to do it. The Pentagon, we'll look a little bit further over this direction. The Pentagon's actually further over this way. The Pentagon is across the river in Virginia. I'm not sure if we'll be able to see it from here. Yeah, I don't think we're going to be able to see through those trees, but if we come back this way and we look across the river, you see this bridge. This bridge will go directly to Arlington National Cemetery, which is the really big, famous, historic military cemetery for all of the great military veterans of the United States. It contains tombs of most of the U.S. great generals. It contains the eternal flame for John F. Kennedy from when he was assassinated. It contains a lot of really spectacular sights. And actually, if you look just across the bridge, there's a little crane. And then just at the top of the crane, kind of by the top of the hillside, you'll see just a little bit of an orange colonnade, a little orange house up there right across the bridge. And that little house is the former house of Robert E. Lee, who was the head Confederate war general. So yesterday we talked about Ulysses Grant, who was the head Union war general. That's the former home of Robert E. Lee, where he actually lived during the Civil War. And it's now part of the grounds of the Arlington National Cemetery, which were born out of the Robert E. Lee estate there in Northern Virginia. So when we talk about the relationship between the Union and the Confederacy, two nations that existed side by side for 5 years and then were reestablished under the Union's leadership. But that's how close and how tightly they were positioned together, that literally here from the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, we can look across and see the house of Robert E. Lee, which is now enshrined within the cemetery for the entirety of the United States military history. I think you got to understand some of that history before we start tearing down a lot of memorials and a lot of monuments to the Confederacy. These were two nations that really were one nation, and one defended a completely unjust cause. But once they reunited, they were countrymen side by side. And at the end of that war, Grant and Lee shook hands. Really spectacular views from the base of that house back toward Washington. And Arlington National Cemetery is really, really beautiful and spectacular. I've been to the cemeteries in Normandy from World War II, and Arlington is just as beautiful as those. Of course, Virginia was a southern state, so just across that river was the Confederacy, which is why obviously Robert E. Lee was there, and it's why Washington during the Civil War was so vulnerable. The capital of the Confederacy was Richmond, which is only 2 hours down the road in Virginia. And that river is the only thing that separated Confederacy with slavery. But just to the south of that in Virginia, I guess to the question about the Pentagon, is the Pentagon. The Pentagon is huge. It's very flat. It sprawls on. It's an enormous building. I think it's still, in total square footage, might be the largest building in the United States. It sort of sits there in a part of Virginia called Pentagon City, but it's really not far at all from where we are right now. It's just across the river, buried in the trees. Obviously, it was hit on 9/11. One of the planes crashed into the side of it. There's a memorial over there to that, as well as a couple other memorials. There's a memorial to Iwo Jima, one of the World War II battles in Japan. The airplane really hit the Pentagon. Colin, it looks like it. I don't know where Ray went from yesterday, but Ray was big into the conspiracy theories, so I don't know. That's the view back toward the Lincoln Memorial. While we're here, we'll just slip over this direction real quick. And over this direction, we'll take a quick look at the Korean War Memorial, which is over this way. And it's quite an interesting little memorial as well. I just think Virginia and Washington are far apart, but no, they are really close, Jake. They are separated by one river. Yeah, beefy, of course. I hope Patrick's not too disappointed we're not doing ducks right this second. We'll try to get back to the ducks here in a minute. Pentagon handled it a lot better than World Trade Center towers. Well, Pentagon's about a 4 or 5 story building. The plane didn't make it through all. There are like 3 layers of the Pentagon. Yeah, I know you are, Patrick. We'll be there. We'll be back in a second. But we're right here, so we'll take a look at the Korean War Memorial, which is interesting. Because it's right here off the Lincoln. Obviously, this part of Washington used to be swamp. This was not natural ground. Well, I made it through about 1.5 layers. Yeah, I think that's right. Wow, Bill. This whole part of Washington used to be swamp. And it's all infill, like fill. This all used to be part of the river, basically. So there are a lot of gnats here at night. If you see things flying across the camera in the light, you know, it sort of feels like you're walking through a field of dust because there's so many just tiny little gnats in the air. So we're entering the grounds of the Korean War Memorial, which obviously is a memorial to the Korean War, which the U.S. fought from, I'm not sure the dates, 1949 to 53, somewhere in there. And it's designed to sort of mimic the experience of the jungles of Korea. Very nasty war. So these soldiers are sort of making their way through the jungle here. Very nasty war with, you know, didn't achieve a whole lot. So it's kind of a triangular battlefield here. Then it leads to this terminus here with a flagpole and a reflecting pool. It actually looks like the reflecting pool is empty. That's a shame. Freedom is not free, it says. USA had over 7,000 troops captured, 103,000 wounded U.S. troops, 8,000 missing U.S. troops, and 54,000 dead U.S. troops, which by the standards of today's wars is an enormous, enormous number. And it's shrouded in this sort of overhang of trees. Very somber. Very quiet this time of night, too. A lot more powerful when the reflecting pool is full of water. Right now it's not. Korean War is one of those American battles I know the least about. Successful along with Vietnam, later basically to halt the spread of communism. Yeah, I think there's a case that it was a, you know, you can make the case it was necessary. A very challenging time for the world. Obviously, we're in a challenging time for the world now. You know, remembering some of these things, obviously, you know, gives us a chance to kind of reflect on some of those things. So we're walking back now toward the ducks. I think, okay, blue, where she says, do the protesters realize the cops are tracking most of them with high-tech surveillance gear? I don't know if they all realize that. Some of them might. I think the fact that there's actually so much footage out there now is, really one of the many protesters tonight. Really not really. It rained pretty hard in Washington yesterday. And it was already starting, the number of protesters out were really starting to decline even before yesterday. There was hardly anybody a few days ago in the White House vicinity. We were here last week and kind of hanging out with the ducks down at the National Mall, and a number of them started kind of led a group up toward the steps of Lincoln Memorial here, and then did some speaking, things like that. But there wasn't, I wouldn't say there was a whole lot of, there were probably only like 30 or 40 people there. So I think, some of the big protests that other cities are still experiencing, not really so much in Washington right now. So there's the reflecting pool again with the Washington Monument. And since we're here, we're just going to do a little detour. Just look at the Vietnam War Memorial while we're here. News took only tight close-ups of the crowd. That is the clue they were not big. Well, for a number of days in Washington, they were enormous, like really enormous. And in fact, that's part of what really scared the Secret Service, was how many people were out there in the vicinity of the White House. They were very close to the White House, and for a while it was very, very, there was a lot of vitriol out there. It was, the Secret Service and the Park Police were out there in riot gear, and the people on the front lines, the barricades, were, I recorded some of it. They were shouting just the nastiest of nasty things. And then eventually, as it got later into the night, some of those nights, they were throwing a lot of things, including Molotov cocktails, other things like that. And when they did, eventually they broke through the barricades and actually forced the Secret Service to surrender ground in Lafayette Park, which meant the Secret Service was like literally giving up ground to the White House, to the protests. And that's what made them very afraid that they were going to make a run on the White House, as the White House grounds kind of got torched. A lot of fires were set. Some of the buildings were lit on fire. They're at sort of the periphery, some of the pavilion buildings. The church, I mean, it probably still has damage, but it's salvageable. Two nights were really, really radical. I keep saying that one of these nights I'm going to record some of the, some of the narratives from what I experienced. And most of the protesters have given up and just decided to let CHAZ people speak for themselves. It's a bad idea. Yeah, it's a bad idea. Jake, you're right. Are there any protests or marches scheduled for the weekend? I don't think so, unless things really ramp up, or unless, I don't know, the Atlanta thing catalyzes more. I just wanted to take you guys through a quick walk here of the Vietnam Memorial, which is a really somber memorial. Obviously, that war in the history of American wars is one of the, I think a lot of people see it as the most tragic, maybe necessary, but really accomplished very little and lost an awful lot of life. So the memorial really doesn't commemorate much of the war itself. It instead just commemorates the names of the people lost. You can see these names are all sort of inscribed into the wall of the memorial here. And the memorial stretches on all the way in this sort of V shape, kind of like a stealth bomber. And normally, when it's not COVID season, there's a lot of flowers and messages left for people here on the side of the memorial. It's a really somber memorial. It was designed by, there's a whole competition for its design, designed by a young lady named Maya Lin. There's a little view of the Capitol, tip of the Capitol dome off in the distance. It was designed by this young lady named Maya Lin. It was very controversial because it didn't commemorate the fighting. It was literally, it feels like a memorial that you would have built to, say, a great tragedy. But it does commemorate every single soldier. There's somebody's left painting their American flag, or American flags. You get a lot of flowers down here, a lot of notes, particularly around Memorial Day in May. So it's very, very much a moving memorial. You kind of make your way through it. A lot of the soldiers who fought in Vietnam were not happy about its construction and the way that it was constructed. And as a result, you know, it's, some people really love it and some people don't. But soldiers who didn't love it so much actually got together and funded the construction of a separate little memorial just to the side of the Vietnam. And that memorial is kind of down this direction. Cut back across to the reflecting pool. It's getting people on scooters. What would have happened if the people entered the White House lawn? Would have been a very bloody, I mean, at that point it would have been hand-to-hand combat between the Secret Service police and the protesters, and the snipers on the roof of the White House would have been the last line of defense for the House itself. So it would have been really bad. It's a good thing that didn't happen. But it was very scary because it was a very real risk that was going to happen for a little while anyway. At that point, they certainly would not have used rubber bullets. They would have been shooting very much to kill. So right through there is the little memorial that the Vietnam soldiers, the 3 Vietnam soldiers actually pointing toward the memorial itself, almost like the memorial is the enemy. So I think the point of contention was people who fought in Vietnam did not feel like they had died in vain. And they didn't want a memorial that made it seem like they had died in vain. So, you know, that's the only area where you actually see troops built. Okay, riding is now the first ADM. The majority of people knew that, and that's why they did not push further. Well, it wasn't really up to the protesters, because ultimately when the protest groups got big enough and they started pushing, they started moving the barricades back, the Secret Service decided they weren't going to play around anymore. And that's when they really started a barrage of tear gas and pepper spray and rubber bullets and things like that into that crowd on H Street. And that successfully, on both Sunday and Monday nights of that week, whatever that was, May 31st, June 1st, it did successfully disperse people from that area along H Street. And a lot of people who were there for peaceful purposes got caught up in that. But I think those people, you know, really need to understand that the White House was under very real threat from the people that weren't there for peaceful purposes at that time. And what that did is it successfully dispersed people from the area in front of the White House there. But what it did is it sent them sort of running in all directions across the downtown of Washington. And the result of that was a couple little ducks just still hanging out here. It's like they're sleeping. That's where do the ducks sleep? It looks like those guys are already settling down for bed. They might already be asleep. There's Lincoln Memorial at night. Yeah, sleeping ducks. Yeah, it's getting real dark. Very close to the longest day of the year, but it's dark. So we'll hit probably a couple more sleeping ducks on the way here. But it was once the protesters got dispersed across the downtown that some of the bad apples that were in the group really had free reign, because the police couldn't monitor every block, and that's when the looting really started happening on a lot of the blocks across downtown. Okay, here's some more ducks just sort of settling down for the night. Looks like, in fact, that looks like a mother duck sitting on top of some ducklings. That's really sweet, actually. The mother duck just kind of sits on them to keep them warm, and they just kind of huddle under her. So you can hear them there. Yeah, mother duck protecting her ducklings. They're settling down for the night. Looks like they're just out of the water. I don't think they have many natural predators here, but yeah, this looks like, you know, both the ducks down there and then the ducks down here are settling down for the night. I'm not sure if we're going to encounter more here as we go down the side of the reflecting pool, but it's quite adorable seeing them there like that. Don't want to interrupt them, but there they are in the foreground of the Lincoln Memorial. It's kind of a spectacular scene, actually. You actually see all the way in the memorial to see the Lincoln. You can hear the babies. There's these stupid bikers. All this noise. The ducks don't seem too scared by it. You just hear the little babies squeaking under there. Powerful biology that a mother duck protects her young like that. Oh no. Somebody's walking a dog out here and just interrupted that whole scene. So the mother duck had to jump in the water and squawk under her babies. Really unfortunate. Yeah, don't walk your dogs down here after the ducks try to go to sleep. It's unfortunate. Yeah, Colin, I think we're learning more about where and when the ducks sleep. A few of them are still flying around. Biking should not be allowed there at that time. I agree. Well, it's the biking, and then I think the dog is really what scared them, Patrick. Clearly they're scared by the dogs. I mean, they don't really have any natural predators down here. I don't think the geese are actual predators for them. There's nothing else down here that would really, you know, scare them. I think they have a pretty good life as far as ducks go. But dogs, I'm sure, are scary for them, and that's unfortunate what just happened. How often a duck gets killed by a dog, I don't know. I can't imagine it's very often down here. Dogs are all on leashes. I'm always surprised at the other reflecting pond. There's a couple ducks in the water there. I'm always surprised the other reflecting pond that more of the dogs don't try to like jump in. A couple just little ducklings here. Just real little ducklings. Swimming with their mother. They're again in the foreground of the Lincoln Memorial. Raccoons. There might be raccoons down here, actually. That's probably a predator. Gotta be some raccoons somewhere after my chickens. Yeah, that could be. That actually could be. It's the Lincoln Memorial. It's the very end of sunset now. And the Washington Monument and the Capitol building this way. So we're learning a little bit more about the ducks here at sleeping time. Foxes, I can't imagine there's foxes down here. I mean, there are foxes, yes, but probably not a lot in the core of Washington here. See if we encounter any more ducks here. On the way back. Plane flying into Reagan Airport there. Some ducks squawking there out in the water. Hard to see too much. Hope all the ducks made it back from their trek with us down to visit the Lincoln Memorial. The ducks, very courageous to follow us all the way down the pond. A couple of them actually got out at the end and followed us up some of the steps toward the Lincoln before we finally let them get back to the water. So I hope they all found their way home. I think they did. I think they know this pond pretty darn well. It's not particularly complicated anyway. But some of the baby ducks came with us. So, I think Wild Bill was saying that, yeah, I think if the rioters amongst the protesters had actually been able to make a run on the White House, that would have, of course, been very, very bad for all concerned. And as bad as the looting in downtown was, which was very, very bad, it might have been worse if they had actually, successfully made a run on the White House, because that would have been very, very ugly. And as bad as a CHAZ is, an occupied White House would be very, very, very dangerous. Patrick, it's going to go on as long as it takes me to walk home, which is probably another 20 minutes or so. But I'm headed home because it's dark now. But keep talking about things on the way. And we'll see what we can find along the way now that it's getting dark. So the Army would have gone in an occupied White House. Yeah, I'm sure they would have. But the thing was, those first couple nights, the Army was not there. I mean, there were only a few National Guard troops around. But that Saturday and Sunday night, the Army had not been called up yet. Come Monday, once the Army was around, nobody was going to be able to do anything. They were cutting off the paths of protesters at every turn. It was, I can imagine if you're a protester out there breaking curfew, trying to peacefully protest what you perceive as injustice, it might have been scary. As a resident of Washington, fearful for my safety and the safety of my building, it was incredibly reassuring seeing basically at every corner there were flashing lights and those helicopters overhead. It became very clear come that Monday that there was going to be no serious violence at that point. Army is serious escalation, yeah. Colin, I'm glad. We'll see what we can continue to show. If you guys have particular things you want to see, I'm obviously happy to go, explore some of those things. Obviously a fair amount to see in Washington. Yeah, Wild Bill, you probably get here a lot. So now this is the World War II Memorial at night. Well, the thing I've noticed about living in Washington, I think a lot of people grow up in Washington and a lot of people move here. Washington's a very transient city. At least among young professionals, there are not a lot of people that grew up here. But there are a lot of native Washingtonians generally. Even of the people who moved here, one of the things I notice a lot is that people who are here don't seem to often very much appreciate the history and the magnitude of what they're living amongst. I think people, live here for a while and they start taking it for granted. And I do that too sometimes. And sometimes, you just got to step back a little bit. And I think COVID's been an opportunity to do that. To just kind of remember that, like, there's a reason you're paying a premium on your rent. Patrick, let me. I think is there a place where we'll see any more ducks? I think in general the ducks are kind of settling down for the night. I'm trying to think if there's anything we'll pass along the way that's like a sort of duck hotspot. I'm not sure. I appreciate Patrick's love of the ducks. Patrick came here because of the ducks, and the ducks are the genesis of this stream. So, we'll try to do as much ducks as we can. The challenge in the United States is that prime time is like now, and the ducks usually like to go to bed by now. So we've been trying to do sort of early evening, which I guess is how we picked up some of you UK folks, which I'm glad to have you. Ducks don't stay up that late. When it gets dark, the ducks kind of go away. But we now have like a couple weeks of streams, so if you really want to see ducks, we've got past days that you can go back and watch on my channel. Let's see. But Patrick, we'll see what we can do. I'm not sure how many ducks we're gonna encounter on the way home here. I'd be surprised if we see many. So apologies about that, man. But we'll be back out tomorrow, seeing more ducks. And if you want to go see ducks from the past few days, pick a stream that you weren't a part of. And there's lots that we've encountered. It's been a fun experience for me getting to know the ducks.
What are you talking about?
For a while when I was working in Virginia Beach, went to DC every weekend or so for a few months. How long ago was that, Wild Bill? DC has changed really dramatically, really rapidly over the last few years. Yeah, Beefy loves the ducks too. Well, it's 2 a.m. and it's quite a relaxing, easygoing stream. That's what we're going for. We started doing this on some of the days when the protests were really, really hot. And I'll tell you, that first week of living in Washington, the first few nights, it was kind of interesting and exciting. Going out and sort of following the protests and sort of seeing where they went. Those violent nights really, really took it out of me. They were really exhausting and very scary. And after a few of those, I was ready for those protests to calm down. I hope everybody gets what they want and need out of their protests. If there's policy change they need to see, so be it. I hope it happens. But, from the perspective of a resident, I was pretty eager to see things calm down. And we started coming down and, rather than track the protests a few of those days, I just came down to hang out with the ducks. And people seemed to really thrive on it and enjoy, what became a much more relaxing experience, even if some of those days there were sirens in the background. I was just showing you the White House down this direction, which is kind of right through those trees, all lit up for the night. But yeah, people see it. I think there was a palpable clamor for peace and for things to be a little bit calmer, to get back to normal. Feeling like the city was under siege and the country was under siege. That's no way to redress any, policy problems. There are better ways of addressing policy than scaring people out of their homes. So the ducks, I think, have been a nice, relaxing way for me to detox a little bit from the intensity of the protests and kind of what they meant to this city. And, you know, if that's brought any of you peace and tranquility, you know, all the better. All right, so we're here at the Washington Monument, looking back down toward the Lincoln Memorial. It's hard to see much now, but that's looking back down the reflecting pool. The World War II Memorial, and these flags that encircle the Washington Monument, which is lit up by these lights at the base. Looking back down toward the U.S. Capitol, this direction. And you can just see that way the tip of the White House poking up amongst the trees there. And the African American Museum, History Museum, Smithsonian over there. Okay, Patrick sends a heart. Great. Colin says, so helps. Great. Wild Bill says 15 years ago. I know a lot has changed, but that was last year for a friend's wedding. Yeah, DC was starting to experience a bit of a renaissance 15 years ago, and I think in the period since, a lot has changed. It used to be, if you lived in Washington 15, 20 years ago, the hot neighborhoods were Georgetown and DuPont Circle. And if you wanted to be kind of edgy, you would go live in Adams Morgan, which was the really kind of the partiers neighborhood. And what's happened in the 10 or 15, 20 years since is that so much of the rest of the city has evolved and kind of come online. And there are as many dynamic and interesting neighborhoods in Washington now as there are in any big city anywhere in the world. Washington has really come online as one of the great cities globally. It always had the great historic assets, and obviously the center of government for the United States makes it a big destination, but it has really, really come online. There are a lot of other great places now. Quacks like a duck and walks like a duck. It's probably a duck, David, unless it's something else that's mimicking a duck. Like a lot of release of lockdown frustration too. I think the protests were a lot of release of lockdown frustration. Yes. I think people were pent up from being in their homes. It's going to make election season very interesting, because election season is going to be a lot of people letting out that anger and frustration and energy too. Ducks have better chance. Yes, they do. I don't know if any of you are like professional protest chant inventors, but I will say that a lot of the messages came through, but they definitely need some better chants. I've heard, no justice, no peace, no racist police. Fuck Donald Trump, fuck the police. No KKK, no fascist USA. I've heard a lot of the same chants. What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now. Black Lives Matter. I mean, simple. Simple is good, but creativity might help. Make changes to the ballot box. Make change to the ballot box. That's not a better way to change things. I mean, oh yeah. Voting is probably the best and most civil way to change things. Eric Weinstein, is that the Evergreen State professor? He had a really good, he's a really interesting guy, because he's a very, very, very left-wing professor. Obviously, he was a professor at Evergreen State, a professor period. Most professors are quite left-wing. But he was one of the professors that was basically, I can't remember how that exactly went down, but he was chased off campus or something for refusing to leave campus for a day where the black students on campus insisted that the white people leave campus for the day, and I guess he refused to do so, or the white people had to stay home. I can't remember what it was, but he refused to do that, and since then he's been sort of a public figure. And I guess that's Brett Weinstein. It's not Eric Weinstein. But Brett Weinstein is a really interesting guy too, the Evergreen State professor. And I think what he was talking about was the importance of some of the messaging of the protest getting lost amongst some of the groups messaging it, which are trying to sort of slip in much more radical messages into what is a set of policy positions with pretty broad support. Okay, it was good because there's really nothing more dangerous than scared Americans. It has helped. Been nice to just chill out. I'm glad, Beefy. Can you go up there in the stream? Up the Washington Monument, you mean, Patrick? I'm not sure it's open right now, but I can check it out. Let's see if we can. One place we can try going up sometime is the tower of the Trump Hotel, which actually has some pretty good views too. And that's something we can go see because I know that's open. So I can check that out perhaps sometime. Gentrified. Should get a duck tattoo. Why don't you get a duck tattoo? Chants were sad compared to Vietnam. Whose streets? Say their names. Whose streets? Our streets. Yep. Duck Lives Matter. That's his. Is he really his brother? David, is that really Eric Weinstein's? Is that really Brett Weinstein's brother? When the left eat each other, yeah, it's not. Yeah, different. It's not really about that. I think there's some philosophy underlying some of the social movements right now that needs some sorting out because it's a little bit self-contradictory at times, and it does end up with people eating each other. And when you sort of build your whole philosophy around the world around always needing to have an enemy, there will always be an enemy. Brett is cool. Eric is super genius. Yeah, I haven't looked up Eric. I'm afraid of Americans, David says. Where are you from, David? I'd feel that Land did the Trump thing. Not necessarily, Colin. I'm actually